Hello, everybody. There we go. Starting to see everybody coming in. Welcome to this week's edition of The Insider. Doing things a little bit differently today. As you guys can see, we've got a few questions for you. Now, I know we usually are here and we answer your questions, and just recently we answered a lot of them. But we had some questions for you guys, and we wanted to get your feedback. So if you are able to, if you're so inclined, please share with us in the chat. You can share it with just the hosts and panelists, or you can share it with the world, either way. Your answers to some of these questions here: which Virtuous feature is most important to your organization? If you could change one Virtuous feature, what would it be? It's kind of like if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why? And if we, and by we here, all of us here at Virtuous, we only worked on one thing in all of 2022, what should it be, right? If you were in charge of Virtuous and you could say, guys, here's the only thing that you need to build. This is the absolute most crucial feature. What would you choose? Let us know. We would love to know your answers for some of these things. Please send those in. And if you'd like to reach out to us after the webinar, you want to share your thoughts, certainly you can do that too. I know some of you folks have emailed us on the training team. We're always available, training@virtuous.org. You can email us. You can also, of course, send us feedback in the product, right? You've got the messenger built into the app, and that has the ability to send in suggestions for a new feature. So you can always go ahead and send those in. And we look at every single one of those because, I mean, we value your feedback. We value your ideas. Okay. Excellent. Hey, someone really likes automated workflows. I dig that. That's excellent. Oh, and some email ideas too, Jason. I'm sure you're seeing some of that come in. This is awesome.
We may or may not chat about that later.
Hey, that's a tease. Jason's a professional. So while you guys are thinking about these questions and sending those in the chat, I want to make sure we can get started. Of course, as always, we've got some really cool things to talk about for you guys today. We're getting some more stuff into reports and analyzing data. This is great. So keep thinking. If you do have ideas, please do send those in. Jason, we have one note in here about better event functionality.
Yes, that came from Cheryl. We can hit on that later. I actually just emailed a few folks on our team, Cheryl, about your specific requests. So I've got good news, which we can touch on later.
See, there you go. Like I said, we're actually, I know sometimes you feel like, hey, I put this thing in. Does it go anywhere? Does anybody see it? And there's real-time proof that we actually are seeing all of that feedback as it comes in. Well, hey, while you guys are thinking about some of those things and thinking about some of those suggestions and thoughts and what are the most important features, welcome to this edition of the Product Pulse for the Insider. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll go through the ground rules real quickly. I think those of you that have been here frequently know by now, right? We are going to record the session for today. That is available in the support center. That's where you can get the recordings from all of the past episodes of the Virtuous Insider. It's like a DVR that you don't have to set. Maybe someone who's millennial will have to explain what a DVR is to you if you're younger. Everybody is muted. That way we can get some good audio, hopefully. Please, if you've got a question, use the Q&A box. Obviously, we asked you to put some things in the chat. Jason and I will hop into the chat, and we're pretty active there. But if it's a question and we want to make sure we don't lose it because that chat goes by so fast, drop it in the Q&A box. That way we can make sure that we can address that today. And we'd love to be able to do that. And I'm saying I've already given it away because I've already said his name like 3 times and he's already spoken, but it is Jason. Jason VanLue is with us again for another month here. We do this at least once a month. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing very well. It is November. Can you believe it? It's almost daylight savings change for all of us who aren't in the great state of Arizona. So
right. You guys are all going to move and we're just going to stay put. I tried to figure out the other day why my weekly meeting with Jason moved by an hour, and then I realized it hadn't. It just looked like it had.
Just Arizona being Arizona.
Makes it easy, but you got to remember to check those smoke alarms. It's a public service announcement. Check the batteries in those smoke detectors, kids. So for today's agenda, in terms of what we want to cover, we got a few things. We want to look at some of the newest features in Virtuous. Of course, in our recent release, we had some new tribute functionality. We'll take a look at tributes. And in RaiseDonors, those of you who are using RaiseDonors for giving, we've got some really cool things in terms of pulling in the dynamic gift array functionality that already exists in Virtuous so that you could use that there, and the ability to accept donations via Venmo. It's pretty cool. And then Jason is going to get out his crystal ball. He's going to peer into the future and look at some things related to events and receipting updates, some email updates, right? We've seen some of these things coming in through the chat as we've been talking here, and some general navigation updates for the app. And then if you've got other questions, you can ask us, and that'll be it for this edition. So I do want to show a couple of these new features. Again, we had some, there's plenty of training content on some of the tribute details, things like that. But to show you what they look like live here, let's do a little switcheroo. Oh, for crying out loud. There's my mouse. It always disappears on us. But I want to show tribute. So the idea with tributes here, right? I think we all know tribute giving. I want to be able to track gifts that are made in memory of someone or in honor of someone and know who that is. And especially with, for example, memorial giving, I want to be able to send an acknowledgement of that gift to a family member and let them know, hey, here's someone who remembered your loved one, right, with a memorial gift. And up until now, we've had just a single tribute field that existed to track all of that information. And the idea was you could type in what you wanted, and you could certainly go query for all the gifts in memory of Bob Smith, and you could find them all. But of course, querying on a text field means that you're counting on someone's typing skills, their spelling skills, the mood they were in that day, and how they chose to phrase something. It isn't really ideal for something like that. We wanted to be able to standardize this a little bit more. But on the flip side, and Jason and I had a lot of these conversations too, and a lot of us here on the team, was we didn't want to force you to potentially create new contact records for people who are deceased just because you want to track tribute giving in their memory, right? So to make that work, that push-pull, we've actually got this whole new concept of creating something called a tribute. So you go into data management, along with all your tags and everything else. Now you see that you can create a tribute there. We don't have any tributes in this particular sandbox. We're going to create a brand new one together. But when I go up here to create a tribute, I'll have to choose. Is this a tribute that's in honor of someone? Is it in memory of someone? So we could say that it's in memory of someone. And then I've got a choice, because if someone is asking for, gifts in lieu of flowers for someone who's passed, odds are there's someone who is already involved with your organization. They may already be a donor, they may be a volunteer, they may be all of the above, which would mean that they already exist in your database. And so you could come in here and you could search for good old Tony Stark, and you could select that individual and say, this is the individual who we're going to get gifts in memory of this person. Now, if this is someone who does not exist in the database, again, we don't want to make you create a record just to be able to track that. So that's where you have the ability to come in here and simply create a brand new tribute record. So we said Bob Smith earlier. I don't know who Bob is, but we could put in Bob Smith's information. We could put in his address. Now you guys have to watch me type. This is going to be great. Anyone who's been on a training with me knows that my typing skills take a deep nosedive anytime I'm on a Zoom meeting. But I can put in his name and his address. We want to get that address, or at least as much of it as we can, to try to use for matching purposes. Because obviously, if we're going to match just to Bob Smith, that's not great. There's a lot of Bob Smiths. But if we get a gift in memory of Bob Smith and someone just says, hey, he lived in Phoenix, Arizona, well, great. I can try to match to the correct tribute record. And then you can set a default acknowledgee. Because again, part of this is making sure that we are able to track who the gift was in memory of. And the other part of this is making sure that we can send an acknowledgement, a notification to someone's family. And so you can set a default acknowledgee, who's the person that we should notify here. But when you enter a gift, you can also set a different acknowledgee for a specific gift at that gift level. This is just a way to say, hey, if there isn't one provided, who should we acknowledge on this gift? Now, the default acknowledgee, you'll notice there isn't an option to just create one whole cloth. It does have to be an existing individual in the database because you're going to be sending communication to them, emailing, everything else. This person does have to exist on a contact record somewhere in the database. So maybe it's his cousin, Bob example, Bob, resident of generic Ohio. We can let Bob know about gifts in memory of Bob. We got too many Bobs going on, but we can create that tribute, and then we'll be able to see this here. As gifts come in memory of Bob Smith, we'll see this gift count go up, and we'll even have the ability to click and view those gifts. There'll be a little magnifying glass here so we can search for those gifts. If I've created this tribute and then I find out that lo and behold, there was a record for Bob Smith in the database and I didn't know it, I can still come in here and click on the add button and I could link this to that individual. I could say, oh, no, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add this to that person. He was in here as Robert Smith all along. Yep. Jason, is there anything that you want to add for context here on some of the tribute functionality?
Yeah, and we've had a couple of questions come in too that I'd like to cover. Just one thing to add, and really this goes to the philosophy of what Scott was talking about and why we created this in the way that we did by establishing a new object. First, we want our data to be really clean. That's a really big priority for us at Virtuous. We want to make sure that you don't have any more records than you need, but you have the records that you actually do need, right? So making sure that that's a priority. And so that's why you see functionality like linking to an individual if they already exist. That's why you see things like searching for acknowledgees within your existing contact records, because the other piece is the responsive fundraising side. If you think about the job to be done, like the purpose many times of what you want to do with a tribute gift, it's to send an acknowledgement to somebody. It's to create that better relationship, to better connect with your donors. And so by having your acknowledgee be one of the contact records in our system, now you can go through all of the other responsive tools that we have to be able to reach out to them to acknowledge that gift. One of the questions that came in is that the default acknowledgee doesn't automatically get notified. Is that correct? And that is correct. We don't automatically notify the acknowledgee. That could be problematic, right? If you have a lot of gifts coming in and they get automatically notified, you could potentially have a number of different notifications happening. So you will be able to set up your own workflows for how you want that acknowledgee to be notified of that gift, or if you want them to be notified at all, right? They don't have to be. But you can set that and have that in place so that if and when you want to send out, a direct mail piece or an email or whatever it is, you can do that with that default acknowledgee. One of the other questions was, can you use this with letters on demand to automatically send letters or postcards? Scott, you want to take that one?
Sure. So currently, no, I wouldn't be able to do that for the acknowledgee. In this sort of phase one of the tribute functionality, I'd have to do any of my acknowledgement mailing by building a query, right? And we made sure that all of this data was available from the query so that you could download a CSV and you would do a mail merge to be able to send those acknowledgements. On the roadmap, so when I say phase one, that automatically implies there's more than one phase. But on the roadmap is some more robust functionality around acknowledgement and acknowledgements in a much broader sense, right? So including tribute gifts, but also just acknowledgements for other types of gifts. And so that might be something that's possible once we get there. But for right now, you'd be doing it by doing a mail merge from a CSV.
Yeah, it's certainly a great use case as we think about ways to utilize this functionality. But Scott's correct. There are other factors to kind of consider there. We want to make sure that we have the proper boundaries in place so that once again, there's not notifications, acknowledgments sent out that aren't necessarily specifically meant to be sent out. Lastly, on the tribute side, Joel asks, we usually create segment codes to record memorial gifts that come in for a deceased individual. Can the segment code be part of this? And so when you are importing, you can still set a segment code, right, Scott? But you don't necessarily have to in this case because we're actually creating a tribute object, and you can set whether or not this is in honor of or in memory of. And so you could still do that if that's part of your workflow, but you wouldn't necessarily have to.
Right. And one of the benefits to using a segment code, right, is you can use some of like the fundraiser functionality to link that segment to a contact. And up until now, that's been sort of the only way that you could easily link these gifts to an existing record in the database. This removes the need for that, right? Because now I can link this to an individual, so they are linked to that record already as part of the tribute. And it again gives me some of the additional functionality around the acknowledgee and everything else on the gift. If it is, like Jason said, part of your workflow to create those segments and be able to track that because you want to have that built into your campaign reporting, you absolutely could. But if you just have a segment code that you use as an umbrella, a blanket for memorial gifts, that's what I would do, because I still want to have that built into my campaign report at the end of the day, but you don't have to have one specifically for each person or each tributee.
Awesome.
Okay. So a couple of other things we wanted to show, and then I do want to make sure that Jason has some time to chat about some of his cool stuff, the stuff that isn't here yet. But the other two features we wanted to show are specific to RaiseDonors, right? There are plenty of you who probably use RaiseDonors as your giving platform, right? RaiseDonors is part of the Virtuous family. It's under our umbrella. And there are two new features that apply specifically to folks who are using RaiseDonors. And the first is actually for folks who are using RaiseDonors together with Virtuous. We have our responsive listener that you can use on your site, right? So that you start to see folks' web activity. And one of the great things about the responsive listener is you can use that together with Virtuous Giving to show folks dynamic gift arrays. So as opposed to having a static array that always asks for 50, 75, 100, 125, whatever, that array can be tailored to what you know about a donor. Now you can actually do the same thing in RaiseDonors. When you set up the RaiseDonors Virtuous integration, you can choose whether or not you'd like to include the responsive listener in that integration. And when you do, then when you go to create a new giving page, you can see here, it'll still show like, hey, just show the suggested amounts, but you could opt to use a dynamic gift array. And there you'll come in and you'll set the amounts. Yes, I'm still here. You'll set the amounts for someone who's unknown, right? Brand new visitor to your page. But then you could also use either the Virtuous suggested amount, someone's last gift amount, or their average gift amount to build a custom array. And you'll come in and set the multipliers for each of those values. And just like setting this in Virtuous, I can come in here and I can go ahead and put in a number so that I could preview what that gift array might look like based on someone's average gift amount being $50, things like that. Now, the other thing that we have on in RaiseDonors is a new option for giving pages, which would be Venmo. Right now, you can come into that donation page and you'll see I can choose to pay by credit card. I can choose to pay by using my bank account. I could choose PayPal, or I could use Venmo. Venmo is part of the PayPal sort of family. And then if I actually come in here and I say, yeah, I want to pay with Venmo, that sounds great. It's actually going to pop up a QR code here. So I can literally just hold up my phone to the screen and that'll open up Venmo so that I can make my donation that way. It's pretty cool. But that's a new option that's available for RaiseDonors giving forms. All right. Half hour goes fast. It always does. I want to make sure that we do have some time to chat about some of the things that are coming down the road. So, Jason, I'll turn it over to you to take a look at some of these features and what's coming.
Yeah, definitely. Love that new Venmo feature. One of our team members mentioned to me, she said, yeah, Venmo is like the millennial version of PayPal. And I thought, yeah, does that make me really old? Because like I don't use Venmo and occasionally I'll use PayPal. So I suppose that does make me kind of old. But
my wife uses Venmo for us and I do not.
That's how it works in my family as well. So there you go. All right. So I did want to cover kind of 4 areas as we look into the future a little bit and talk about what's on the roadmap. And I don't have really anything visually to show today, but I did want to hit on a few high-level features of some things that are going to be coming in this quarter, and then also some things that we're going to continue working on through next year. And I really appreciate all of your comments. I've taken note of all of the ideas and all of the important features that you've listed. So really appreciate that. First up, events. We have teased this on this Insider before. We presented it now a couple weeks ago at the Responsive Nonprofit Summit, kind of teased it there. And so as you probably know, we are building really robust event functionality into RaiseDonors. It'll also be available on the Virtuous side because of our integration of the 2 products. And that is really a really robust online events tool. So you can do everything from free events through paid events like galas, golf tournaments, concerts, things like that. Has the option to really support a number of different ticket types, a number of different event types. And I did want to highlight the fact that you can do free events there as well. And so obviously we will continue to have events functionality on the Virtuous side. So you can build an event form, you can track event information like RSVPs and attendees and things like that. But you can also build that on the RaiseDonors event side also. It's just going to have a lot more sort of online registration functionality. That's really where it's going to shine. And so that is still in active development. We are on the home stretch for that and working through kind of the final aspects, but we are really excited about it. We've been working really hard and we're really excited about all of the features and functionality that exists there. It's a really flexible platform. We, just like we did with payments, we really wanted to build an events platform tailored to nonprofits. So thinking about the types of events that nonprofits put on and what the primary needs of those organizations are when it comes to, okay, what do I want to see when it comes to attendee information? How do I want to register somebody for an event? Thinking about syncs into Virtuous, what's the type of information that's going to be helpful and valuable on that side? And so that is coming in Q4. Like I said, we're on the home stretch there. And so keep your eyes posted for that. I did want to mention Cheryl because I talked about it earlier. Did get your note, and the 2 things that you referenced are actually on the Virtuous event side. And so we are actually continuing to make updates there in addition to the RaiseDonors event side. So things like custom fields and a couple of the other things that you mentioned are going to be coming on the Virtuous event side in the next sprint or 2. So we are actively working on that as well, because we want to make sure that we are supporting both platforms and moving all of our events functionality forward. In terms of receipting updates, so the next 2, receipting and email, these are 2 areas, many of which have come up in some of the questions that we asked, some of the answers from you. These are 2 widely used, highly used areas of Virtuous, really important for obvious reasons. You need to be able to send receipts to all of your donors. And Virtuous is an email platform, among many other things. And so it would make sense that these are 2 highly used features. And so it's been a while since we've shown them some love, and we really want to show them some love. So we are making a lot of improvements to our receipting tools, particularly around how you create, build, and edit receipts. So things like margin formatting, things like page size, customization of the actual receipt builder. Those kinds of things are all coming in Q4. We're actively working on that now. And I think it's going to create just a much better user experience as a whole. These are a lot of things that we've been hearing for a long time. Can I adjust the page size? Can I adjust margins? Like, I have to put this on my letterhead, and I can't, move things over so that I can print these out in Office, things like that. So we are working on that, and I think that's going to be really valuable. So that is coming soon. And then on the email side, lots of things happening there. Some of the primary functional updates that we're making are around analytics. So we've heard a lot about email analytics, getting a lot more granular into what I can track for what's being clicked on, and many other detailed analytics for emails. And so sounds like a lot of you folks are excited about that. I am as well. Obviously, having good data is going to give you a lot of insight into not only creating better emails, but ultimately to connecting more responsibly with your donors. So we're really going to be doubling down on that. We are going to be working on a lot of flow things as well. So unsubscribed flow is on the list. We are going to be making some improvements to merge tags and sort of how you build emails, just improving the user experience as a whole. So it's not quite as confusing to figure out how to get things into your templates, things like that. And so those two areas, again, highly used, highly touched inside of Virtuous, need some love. And so we are really trying to show them some love. Lastly, navigation updates. And I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One of which, and I would be curious what everybody's feedback, and I'll also mention that we are going to be sending out some surveys moving forward around navigation. So particularly asking about how intuitive is our navigation, how easy is it to find what you need inside of Virtuous, things like that. If you are interested in providing feedback, hopefully all of you are, I would love to include you in some of those surveys. And so you can say yes, raise your hand here, and we will make note of it. You can also reach out to Scott and myself, and we can make sure that you're included there. But that is an area that, as we grow, I mean, there is a lot inside of Virtuous and RaiseDonors, right? Lots of different things. And so we want to make sure that the wayfinding is as intuitive as possible. And so we're going to be making some visual updates. We're going to be making some information architecture and wayfinding updates. And so we would love to get some of your feedback, find out what maybe right now is really confusing. Even some positive things, what now are things that, like, if this goes away, I'm going to be really mad because this is really easy for me to get to where I want to go. Those are also important. So that is going to be an initiative that we are focusing on, particularly on the design, so UI, UX side of the equation this quarter. So I will definitely include all of you. Thank you for marking that in chat. So those are the 4 areas with 2 minutes to spare. So yeah, lots of things going on, and really excited about it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And everybody, it's so cool when you just, because you said, I have no visuals, I can just let you know what's coming. And we already have people who are like celebrating in the chat, which is great. And we hope that you keep celebrating when you see the things. That would be ideal. Hopefully you will. But I think that overwhelmingly, if you guys can't tell, Jason spends so much of his time trying to listen to as much of the feedback from everybody, from all of our users as he can, and trying to find out, hey, what are the things that we could do to make everybody's life better, right? Not just what are the things that seem like they'd be neato that we want to build, because we don't want to build neato. We want to actually help you guys do what you need to do. We had a couple of questions come in, and one of them was just a question about RaiseDonors. Can you use RaiseDonors? Does that work for Canadian charities? Yes, it does. And I would, if you're curious, if you're interested, if you have questions, reach out to your account manager here at Virtuous. And if you don't know who that is, you can always just reach out via the chat in Virtuous, and we'll connect you with your account manager. They'll respond directly right there if you have questions about that. Jason, there was a question about timing on the receiving and email updates. Is that Q4 this year? Is that, coming in 2022 and beyond? Is it a little bit of both?
Yes, and both.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are slated to release some updates in this quarter for both. I don't think we'll get through everything that we want to get through in just one quarter, and so we have planned on extending that into Q1 of next year also.
And there was one, and this could be just a quick yes, no, but we did have a question about responsive listener because we did mention it earlier. Fair game. And being able to query on some of the web activity directly, which right now, right, I can query on a couple of web activity stats, first site visit, last site visit, things like that. But being able to know, for example, that, hey, someone was on the page for my Latin America program, because now I want to target them with some content about those programs. Something that's on the roadmap for future development here.
Yes, indeed, and that's great feedback. I mean, there's a lot that goes into data and analytics across the board, whether it's emails, whether it's dashboard information analytics, whether it's financial scoring, social scoring. There's a lot of places that we have data, and a lot of places we can improve that, to be more insightful. So that's great feedback. I'm gonna note that, and thanks for sharing that.
And there was one question about, will you need to have a RaiseDonors account to use the new event management features?
Yes. And so it is being built in RaiseDonors, and you will need to obviously have access to that. We're still working out some of the details on what that means for existing Virtuous customers and all of that. And so we'll make sure, if you are interested, please get in touch, and I can have our account management team get you all that relevant information.
Excellent. There you go. So we're a couple minutes over our time. I do want to, as always, remind you guys, please do join us. We do this every week. We'll be doing this again next Thursday. That's November 11th. My slide is correct. I hope that it is. Again, at 3 p.m. Eastern, right? We always try to keep it Eastern. So since we don't move in Arizona, it's not confusing for everybody else. I'll certainly probably be on the webinar an hour early if tradition holds, because that's usually what I do when daylight savings happens, is I wonder where everybody else is. And I do have a quote. Last week, we went with Benjamin Franklin because I am from Philadelphia. So, of course, we had to learn all of Benjamin Franklin's wit and wisdom when we were kids. I figured we'd continue that trend this week. Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. I thought that really kind of tied into what we're talking about here with all the changes that we're making. And before we go, we couldn't end this without, and it's so great because he's here again to do it himself live, the Jason VanLue dad joke of the week. What do you have for us, Jason?
Well, see, it always comes after your noble quote, and that's interesting timing. All right, so yesterday I was out on a run, and I spotted an albino Dalmatian. It was the least I could do for it.
And on that note, thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Jason, you got laughter in the chat. There you go. It's popular, man. It is the most popular new feature we have here, and we're gonna keep it going.
That's just the roadmap moving forward, is more dad jokes.
That's it. Yeah, we'll have to build it into the product. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.